Recording in progress.
So today we're talking about story fondling. Isn't that a weird description? But the word fondle means to stroke or caress lovingly. And we all have had stories that we repeat over and over to anybody who will listen. Or if you don't think you've done it, I guarantee you have a friend or a family member who does this, right? So it's called story fondling. This was a term I got from Martha Beck. And there's a reason for it. I mean, we do it for a reason, but we're talking today about how to stop doing it, how to stop letting your past, specifically one story or one person, define your life going forward. My dad, for years, y'all, has repeated this story about Chicago, except he pronounces it Chicago. He went on some kind of ag trip and his suitcase got stolen. And I mean, it's this long story. And every time I bring up, oh, Dad, I'm going to Chicago for a conference or whatever, he's like, Chicago? Oh, let me tell you about Chicago. Terrible place. And we get so tickled talking about Chicago. But he's not letting that story define his whole life, but he's definitely letting it define how he sees that part of the country, right? And if you've been burned out, or if you're at the point with your job where you're like, I don't think I can keep doing this, I'm emotionally depleted, I'm barely keeping my head above water, I feel like I'm drowning a lot of days, there's often somebody or something that you're villainizing. Because, I mean, we don't want to blame ourselves. Maybe some of us villainize ourselves and we think, well, I'm just so weak. Other people are doing fine. It's just me. I know I went through a period like that where I was convinced I just wasn't tough enough, or my endurance wasn't what everybody else's was because I couldn't see 47 or 50 patients a day and still love my job. Um, but a lot of times with burnout, there is somebody or something that you are continuing to blame. And this is disempowering. It takes your power away and gives it to this past circumstance. You're not taking back control and moving forward. Instead, you're letting this thing decide how you live your life going forward. It's like you are stuck in a cocoon. And we talked about, the change cycle. So anytime something bad happens or good, just a major change, you are going to spend time in square one, which is like a cocoon. So this is normal. Like you have something bad happen. You have a boss who blesses you out, or you get fired, or you lose your job, or even starting a new job that you like. You're going to spend time in the cocoon with just grieving what was lost or what changed, and kind of getting used to your new world, your new environment. So just like a caterpillar is going to have to spend time in there, you will too. But when you're a story fondler, it means you are stuck in that cocoon. It's like a big, comfortable security blanket. My daughter has a giant pink blanket. I've probably talked about it because I feel like it's a member of our family. We call it Pink Blankie, and it's huge. It's like the size of maybe a full size bed blanket. And she has had this thing since she was an infant. And anyway, what was I saying? Oh, big pink blankie. So we used to wrap her up like a taco in it. And funny story, she and Eli convinced a babysitter one time to let them roll her in this big pink blanket. And then they put chairs on top of like trapped her basically, caged her in, wrapped with her arms by her side in this giant pink blanket. And then they sat on top of the chairs and wouldn't let her up. And, we heard about it when we got home. But you're essentially trapping yourself in like a big pink blanket when you do this, because it will lead to a different outcome, a different future than if you didn't keep repeating the same story in your head. I see this with clients, I'll say, they say, I don't know if I've ever told you about blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, I've heard about that maybe half a dozen times so far. Or they'll say, this person just wronged me. They just screwed me over. But they keep dwelling on it over and over. It's like they're caressing it in their mind. And it is hard to move on. I get that. I had a story for years that I repeated, and I felt so justified. I mean, the feeling of like I am right and they are wrong. And I would repeat it. And when somebody would have, like, I wanted a certain look on their face or a certain reaction, like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe she did that. And I really wanted that reaction. And there was some like energy I got from it. So I get it. Even now, I find myself thinking about it. It was like when I was pregnant with my daughter, and I'm not even going to tell you the story because that takes away my power. But let's just say that somebody accused me of something associated with work, and I was completely in the right. But see, even now I'm getting myself like riled up and I really want to tell the story. So this is what happens though. When you story fondle, you get stuck. You really do. And so we talk about leaving Stuckville. Do you really want somebody else driving your car across your life's journey? Do you want to get behind the wheel and leave? Do you want to leave that memory behind? Yes, you do. Um, it's like that movie American Pie. The character who keeps talking about, and one time at band camp, and one time at band camp, like it's over and over. So don't be that and one time at band camp, girl. There's a lady who I ran into where I live. She moved, so I don't think y'all will figure out who it is. But she did something in high school while she was on drugs. Not drugs, that makes it sound like she's awful. She was smoking some weed and she did something stupid that anybody could have done in high school. But she kind of became known for that. And she sustained some injuries that, put her in the hospital for a few weeks. But she is sort of known as that girl, at least in my mind. I don't know if anybody else thinks of her like that. But you really don't want to be you're labeling yourself when you do this. So when you story fondle, you are labeling yourself as the person who got screwed over by so and so, or the person who couldn't move on after the divorce, or whatever it is. Even yesterday on Facebook, there's a couple I know, and they divorced probably 4 years ago. And the wife still posts, like she posted something like in the tone of nanny boo boo, I was right, you were wrong, about her ex-husband. And I'm thinking, lady, are you still concerned with what you need to move on. Like this was 4 years ago. But we all do this. So I'm not trying to judge her too much. Anyway, you've probably heard the saying, where your attention goes, your energy grows, or something along those lines. It is true. And whether it's a health issue you're letting define you, or a situation from your past, if your attention is going there constantly, or even every now and then, but if you keep your attention on that, it's going to grow. It's like watering a plant. It is going to grow. And if you were thinking, well, I'm glad I don't do this, I don't story fondle, but maybe you're blaming yourself. Maybe it's like you're villainizing yourself and you're saying, I really screwed up. I mean, I messed up, or I am a horrible mother, wife, whatever. If you continue to fondle that story, that is also defining how you are going forward. I have read books on labeling your kids, and I try so hard not to, but I do it anyway. I'll admit it. My firstborn is a rule follower. So that may follow him. And then he thinks, well, I can't possibly make mistakes because I'm the rule follower, or I can't be naughty and like do something even a little bit bad because I'm the rule follower. So pay attention to how you think of yourself based on what happened in the past. Another way to ask this is, okay, let's say you're burned out. It's a job situation. Who do you blame? Is there a person or a specific example of what you think prompted you to start disliking your job? Or maybe it's not your job per se. Maybe you left a bad boss. Maybe you blame like this person for causing you to no longer like your career. And I mean, when you hear people that have left their jobs, how often do you hear them say, it just wasn't a good fit? Wasn't them, wasn't me, just wasn't a good fit. Or same thing with divorce. Like it's rare that you hear somebody just say, nah, there's nobody to blame, no situation. It just wasn't a good fit. Instead, we repeat stories to ourselves to explain what happened and as evidence that it was not us, that it's them. So, why, as humans, can't we move on? Or why do we choose not to move on? I mean, it could be that it's like a safety thing. So, like back when we were cave people, if we repeated stories to ourselves about, oh, Jack got eaten by a crocodile at that river, and we repeat it over and over, then, we don't go by that same river. So it keeps us alive. But we're not living in the time of crocodiles. So there comes a point where you have to make the choice to move on, or you are choosing to stay stuck. You're choosing to let that define your life. Um, you can also shift how you see it. So let's say you're like, well, a car hit me and I was paralyzed from the waist down. Like that is going to define the rest of my life. But can you change how you look at it? Can you see it as the start of a new chapter that changed you into a stronger version of you? Or can you find any tiny little thing that you are grateful for that happened after that happened, maybe as a result of that? And maybe you can't. Maybe this won't happen right away. So obviously, if you just got hit by a car and your legs are paralyzed, you need time in that cocoon to grieve. So I'm not trying to take away that. But if it's been a year, if it's been 2 years, then at some point you make the choice to move on. My husband one time got a ticket in the mail and it was addressed to me, and it was in my car, and he was like, "Oh, what the heck? Like you got like this $100 ticket," and it was one of those automatic cameras that took a picture. And so, that could have defined me, but instead I was, hold on, we're gonna pause. Yeah, sorry, I got sidetracked. So I could have let that, my husband would call me super speeder. And this went on for weeks until I finally got bright and pulled up the picture on their website. And guess who it was? He had been driving my car that day, and he was actually the one speeding and the one who got the ticket. And if you blew it up, you could see his little face sitting in that white Honda Accord. Ha! But then but then I could let that story define him. So anyway, how do you know if you're a story fondler? This is important because story fondlers don't realize that they're doing it. So you might be a story fondler if you obviously repeat the same story of hurt and pain. So it's not like a story of triumph. It's usually a story of hurt and pain. And when they meet new people, they want to share this story. It's like the podcast, How This Was Made. You want the new person to know how you were made, that this was a significant event in your past. Number two, you're making it mean something about the present day version of you. Like, I am a loser because this happened, or I am a victim, or life sucks and I'm destined to be blank because this happened. Number three, you try to get others to buy into the story of how wronged you were. Like, just like I said, when I used to tell my story, I would want people to have a certain reaction and I'd want to see a certain expression on their face. I needed buy-in. And when you recall what happened, it gets you riled up all over again. Like, you physically feel it in your body. And even to this day, when I recall that specific work incident, my heart starts pounding and I go into fight or flight mode. And lastly, you want the story to justify why your current life or your current situation is the way it is. Other people aren't really worried about that story. They're not bringing it up. It's you. You're the one who's fondling it and caressing it. So how do you let go? How do you let go if there was something that happened that was truly awful or unfair, or it really did change the trajectory of your life? All right, the first thing you do is you need to get into therapy because you need to get it out of your head once and for all. I think writing it out like this to our brain is a way of immortalizing it. I mean, even if nobody ever sees it, it gets it out onto paper and it cleans it out of your head. Your head's like your attic. And so by writing it out, it's going to clean that story out. You can also, number two, write it in third person. So this works because it's like you're telling a story about somebody else. So it removes you 1 or 2 degrees from it. And you can even turn the victim, which is you, into the hero. Like, there's a hero's journey, which is where the main character goes through hardships, learns from it, becomes a better person, bigger person, and then that person uses that hardship to help other people. Number three, maybe you could turn the villain in the story into the teacher. And this is ultimately what I was able to do. So the villain was like the job, but also the boss. And so on a good day, I'm able to think of it as like, this taught me boundaries. This taught me to use my voice to stand up for myself. Number four, what thing, even if it's teeny, teeny, teeny tiny, happened that was good as a result of the bad thing that happened? I mean, how can you use that plot twist that happened to you as the impetus or the beginning of a new chapter? And really, it's a choice. Like this, a lot of what I talk about is that it's your choice. You get to decide to get behind the wheel again of your car, of your life. Number five, magnifier to mirror. Turn that magnifier that you are using to like blow up and examine the past into a mirror. Flip it around. Use it as a mirror. How are you stronger? How are you different and better as a result of what happened? And if you say, well, I'm not, how can you be? I mean, you're still here. That shows some resiliency, right? Number six, by definition, when we are wronged by someone or something, there is a bad guy. As long as you keep fondling this story, the bad guy is the winner. You're giving away your power. You're still letting this thing take up real estate in your brain, valuable real estate. And your body is responding to these thoughts. So how can you kick the bad guy out? How can you get it out of your brain and stop handing over your power? Number seven, if this were a movie and you're the main character, how do you want the movie to progress? Like, what do you want the main character to do? And just again, it's third person. Just maybe think of it that way. Number 8, imagine your life as a journey. There's a fork in the road. One road is like a toll road, and it leads towards your life. Like this is the future's wide open. The price of the toll, though, is going to be leaving this story behind. You can bury it, you can grieve it, but you can't carry it with you. And you can't go back through the toll road. So you can't go through and then be like, oh, yeah, I really wanted to revisit this story that happened to me because it really was defining, blah, blah, blah. No, you can't like put it in reverse, go back through the toll road. You got to decide to leave it behind. And, it's like I said, there's a fork in the road. So the one road leads to your life. The future is wide open. The other road, guess where it leads? It's like a parking lot. It's a parking lot, and you're going to be stuck there, parked indefinitely. Or maybe it's like our high school parking lot. It has huge speed bumps every like 2 feet so that you don't get to go fast, and you just basically go in loops all around the parking lot hitting these giant speed bumps. You don't want to spend the rest of your life in a parking lot. You get to decide. All right, last, what need do you have that this story fills? Because we all have needs, and you have used this story as your security blanket. So, in my case, maybe it's that I needed evidence. Let's see, what would be my need? I guess I wanted justification that the job really was bad and that I had a right to move on. But I wanted somebody to give me permission to leave. And so by retelling that story over and over, I think I was seeking justification that I made the right choice, that it was okay for me to leave. But, ask yourself, like, what happens if I never get that validation, if I never get an apology, if the person who wronged you, if they're truly wrong, that's okay. They may be. But what happens if you never, ever, ever get an apology? Do you still want to move on, or are you going to stay in that parking lot for the rest of your life? So, again, be as mad as you want to be when it happens, grieve it, rant and rave, do whatever you need to when this situation happens, when you find yourself wronged. But do not let that story define the rest of your life going forward. If you need help letting go, or if you're like, I don't really think I'm a story fondler because it really did happen and it really was awful, you're story fondling right now. But if you need help with that, please reach out. You can email me at hope.cook@gmail.com. And I will not catch y'all next week because it's Thanksgiving. And we're going to take a break between season 4 and 5. Season 5 will start after Christmas. And I want you to subscribe so you'll know when I come back. And I may have some surprises for y'all when I come back. All right. See you later.